At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the President of the School of Visual Arts, David Rhodes.
Oops. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Members of the board, honored guests, faculty, administration, parents, families, and most of all, soon-to-be graduates, I'd like to welcome you to SVA's 37th formal commencement exercises held in the honor of the class of 2012. I think it would be best to begin by thanking a few of the people who have made today's events possible. First, I would like to thank the Commencement Committee, Milton Glazer, Kevin O'Callahan, and Anthony Rhodes, who are chiefly responsible for the design of today's ceremony. I would also like to thank Lucky Checkley, Coordinator of Academic Advisement, and the academic advisors who have helped guide you here. Finally, echoing the words of the two previous speakers, I think we should all thank those parents, grandparents, friends, significant others, some cases children, whose emotional and financial support have enabled you all to reach this point. Thank you all. This week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. I would like you to think of those elementary, junior, and senior high school teachers deserving of your appreciation. And although there is much for us to appreciate, there is also cause for much concern. There are three trends, two long-term and one we hope short-term, that are converging to undermine the profession of teaching. The first trend is the aging of the profession and the consequent acceleration in retirements of experienced teachers. Federal data for 1987-88 indicates that the modal years of experience, that is, the years of experience of the largest number of teachers, was 15. By 2007-8, that number had fallen to 0. The years of experience that most teachers had were none, as they were new. Would you knowingly fly an airline whose pilots were so inexperienced? Without experienced mentors and role models, it should not be surprising that at best 60%, and in some cases less than half, of these new teachers will still be in the profession after 5 years. No other profession in the United States has this kind of turnover. It is extraordinarily wasteful and self-perpetuating. The more inexperienced teachers we lose, the more we need to recruit, only to lose those in turn. It is certainly no way to recruit the best to the profession. The second trend is the introduction of high-stakes standardized testing as both a requirement and a measuring device. High-stakes testing begins with the legislation known as No Child Left Behind, a signature achievement brought about by a cooperative effort of President George W. Bush and Senator Ted Kennedy. From 2002 to the present, more and more students have been required to take standardized tests in reading and math with the expectation of annual gains in test scores. Schools where students do not make annual gains within the mandated subdivisions are deemed to be failing. It is estimated that by 2014, the vast majority of American schools will be failing. It is not entirely clear that these outcomes were unintended. There are 3 consequences to high-stakes standardized testing, all of them malign. First, the incentives to cheat are increased in proportion to the penalties or rewards associated with the tests. All of the apparent gains made by students in New York City from 2002 to 2009 were discovered to have been caused by the tests being dumbed down, and not by the reforms propounded by the mayor and the school's chancellor. Recent evidence indicate that cheating has been rampant in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, two school systems whose educational reforms were touted as the causes of a rapid rise in test scores that were apparently illusory. But this problem has been obvious from the beginning. One of the arguments in favor of No Child Left Behind was what was then called the Houston Miracle, the extraordinary gains in achievement and graduation rates of the Houston School District, until the Houston Chronicle exposed it as a hoax by documenting widespread fraud in the reporting of results. The second malign consequence is that teachers teach to the test. President Obama has said recently that teachers should not teach to the test, a worthy sentiment that should have been followed by something like, and to ensure that they will not have to teach to the test, we will stop testing. Thank you. Instead, the President's initiative called Race to the Top requires that school districts use the results of these standardized tests to determine merit increases for those whose students' test scores improve the most, and dismissals for those whose students' test scores improve the least. Since President Obama has used the word incentivize more than any other president, it is clear that he knows what he is incentivizing: teaching to the test. It is not clear where learning fits into this paradigm. The third consequence of high-stakes testing is that those subjects that are not tested are driven from the curriculum. If only math and reading are tested, then only math and reading count. History, science, art, dance, music, theater, physical education, and eventually all other untested subjects will be, and in some cases already have been, dropped from the curriculum in favor of greater emphasis on math and reading. Aside from making the curriculum extraordinarily dull, think of what your high school would have been like without the arts. Standardized testing creates a student body that's good at guessing which bubbles to fill in, but is not good at asking questions, particularly the questions that do not have easy answers, the questions that we hope you've been asking while at SVA, but which your successors may not be prepared to ask. Finally, all of these trends have been exacerbated by the recession. Since the recession began, over 300,000 education positions have been eliminated at the state and local level. 7.2% of all America's teachers have been laid off, despite the increasing number of retirements of the more experienced and more highly paid teachers. In short, the profession has been demoralized by a culture of disrespect and decimated by revenue shortfalls. But what is to be done? In the short term, we must find ways to rehire those teachers who've been laid off. We must give up high-stakes testing in favor of instruments that diagnose weaknesses and permit remediation. In the intermediate term, we must make teacher preparation more rigorous and the profession more respected, as it is, for example, in Finland, Japan, and South Korea. And in the long term, we must begin the process of returning education to its roots by ensuring that students have the freedom to learn and to question, and teachers have the freedom to teach without outside interference, particularly from those politicians who do not have the competence to judge the educational enterprise. So, as you take time to think about the teachers who helped you reach this point in your life, those who have inspired, encouraged, supported, and prepared you for the challenges and work ahead. In the spirit of your appreciation, become engaged in the process of genuine educational reform, because absent substantial change, it will be your children who will be subjected to this dysfunctional educational system. Thank you, and congratulations again.